Throughout history, celestial events such as eclipses have been regarded as divine omens, often interpreted as harbingers of great change, calamity, or divine judgment. One of the most profound biblical images associated with cataclysmic events is the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, described in Revelation 6. These riders symbolize conquest, war, famine, and death forces that have shaped human history. Given the association between eclipses and significant historical upheavals, could such celestial phenomena serve as warnings of the horsemen's approach? This video explores the connection between eclipses and the Four Horsemen, considering biblical prophecy, historical events, and potential future implications. In the book of Revelation, the Apostle John describes a powerful vision of the Lamb Jesus Christ breaking the first four seals, revealing four horsemen. These riders symbolize different aspects of divine judgment upon the earth, each ushering in a phase of tribulation that impacts humanity on a global scale. And I looked, and behold a white horse, and its rider had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he came out conquering, and to conquer. Revelation 6:2. The rider on the white horse is often associated with conquest, political domination, and deceptive peace. While some interpret this figure as Christ spreading the gospel, many scholars view this rider as a false Messiah, an antichrist figure who deceives the nations with a promise of unity and control. The absence of arrows suggests a conquest achieved not by force, but through diplomacy, deception, or ideological influence that paves the way for greater turmoil. And out came another horse, bright red. Its rider was permitted to take peace from the earth, so that people should slay one another, and he was given a great sword. Revelation 6:4. The red horse represents war, violent conflict, and chaos. Once peace is removed, nations and individuals turn against one another in widespread bloodshed. The color red symbolizes the shedding of blood in warfare, revolutions, and civil unrest, resulting in global instability and immense suffering. This rider could reflect the escalation of geopolitical tensions, leading to devastating wars that impact countless lives. And I looked, and behold, a black horse, and its rider had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard what seemed to be a voice, saying, "A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, but do not harm the oil and wine." Revelation 6:5-6. The black horse signifies famine, economic distress, and scarcity of resources. The scales in the rider's hand symbolize trade and economic control, while the measurements of food reveal extreme inflation and food shortages. A denarius, a typical day's wage in biblical times, could only buy a small amount of wheat, barely enough for survival. Meanwhile, luxury goods like oil and wine remain untouched, suggesting an economic disparity where the poor suffer while the wealthy are unaffected. This prophecy aligns with economic crises, food shortages, and rising living costs seen throughout history and in modern times. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and its rider's name was Death, and Hades followed him. And they were given authority over a fourth of the earth, to kill with sword and with famine and with pestilence and by wild beasts of the earth. Revelation 6:8. The pale horse translated from the Greek chloros, meaning sickly green or pale, represents widespread death through war, famine, disease, and natural disasters. The presence of Hades following this rider emphasizes that mass death will lead many souls to the grave. The devastation brought by this horseman suggests pandemics, biological plagues, and environmental disasters contributing to immense loss of life. While the Four Horsemen describe a sequence of divine judgment, their themes resonate with the challenges facing the world today. Political deception, conflicts, economic instability, and pandemics have shaped history and continue to impact humanity. Some believe that these riders represent ongoing cycles of tribulation leading up to the final return of Christ, urging believers to remain watchful and spiritually prepared. As we reflect on these prophetic visions, we are reminded of Jesus' words in Matthew 24:6-8. "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains." The fulfillment of these signs calls for repentance, faith, and readiness for the ultimate return of the Lord. Throughout history, solar and lunar eclipses have coincided with world events that reflect the judgments symbolized by the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. While these celestial events do not directly cause crises, they have often served as ominous markers preceding major wars, famines, plagues, and economic upheavals. On August 21, 1914, a total solar eclipse darkened parts of Europe, just as World War I erupted. This war, one of the deadliest in history, saw widespread bloodshed, the fall of empires, and the reshaping of global power structures. The red horse of Revelation represents the removal of peace and the outbreak of violent conflict, both of which defined the Great War. A solar eclipse on April 19, 1939, occurred just months before Nazi Germany's invasion of Poland, marking the beginning of World War II. Hitler's aggressive expansion and deceitful diplomacy align with the White Horse's theme of conquest, while the war itself reflects the Red Horse's legacy of destruction. This global conflict resulted in unparalleled devastation and set the stage for new world orders. During the 14th century, a series of lunar eclipses preceded the outbreak of the Black Death, which wiped out nearly one-third of Europe's population. The pale horse of Revelation symbolizes widespread death through plague and disease, mirroring the catastrophic impact of the bubonic plague, which reshaped societies and economies for generations. Major solar and lunar eclipses preceded the Great Depression 1929, one of history's worst economic collapses. The stock market crash led to widespread poverty, food shortages, and mass unemployment, hallmarks of the Black Horse, which signifies famine and economic distress. Similar patterns of economic downturns have followed eclipses, raising questions about celestial signs as warnings. While skeptics see these connections as coincidence, biblical prophecy often points to signs in the heavens as divine messages. Jesus said in Luke 21:25, "There shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars." Could the upcoming March 29, 2025, solar eclipse serve as another warning for the world? Whether or not one views eclipses as direct omens, history suggests that celestial events have often preceded significant global turning points. The call remains the same: to be spiritually prepared and heed the signs of the times. With growing global instability, some speculate whether the upcoming March 29, 2025, solar eclipse could be another divine signal, an indicator of escalating crises that align with the themes of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Biblical prophecy has long associated celestial signs with warnings of judgment, and this eclipse arrives at a time of significant unrest. The red horse of Revelation 6:4 symbolizes war and bloodshed. Around the world, geopolitical tensions are mounting. Ukraine and Russia remain locked in a brutal war. Middle East conflicts, including tensions involving Israel, Iran, and surrounding nations, are intensifying. Asia-Pacific disputes, such as rising tensions over Taiwan and the South China Sea, threaten further global instability. As history has shown, war often escalates in cycles, and many fear that the next major global conflict is looming. The Black Horse of Revelation 6:5-6 represents economic turmoil and food scarcity. Several modern factors contribute to this crisis. Climate change and extreme weather disrupt crop production. Ongoing wars devastate agricultural regions and disrupt supply chains. Economic instability and inflation make food unaffordable for many, leading to hunger and poverty. Just as the Great Depression followed an eclipse in 1929, could this upcoming eclipse precede another economic downturn? The pale horse of Revelation 6:8 represents disease, death, and widespread devastation. Recent events reflect this prophecy. The COVID-19 pandemic reshaped the world and revealed vulnerabilities in global health systems. New viruses and concerns over bioterrorism raise fears of future pandemics. Antibiotic resistance and the threat of engineered diseases could lead to future health crises. Throughout history, major pandemics have followed celestial events. Could this eclipse mark another impending global health crisis? The white horse of Revelation 6:2 represents deception, conquest, and false peace. Today's world is full of political unrest. Misinformation and propaganda manipulate public perception. Government corruption and instability erode trust in leadership. Technological surveillance and control increase fears of authoritarian rule. The rise of global leaders who promise peace but bring division could align with this prophetic figure. If celestial events like eclipses are signs of divine warnings, how should believers and the world at large respond? Revelation consistently calls for repentance before divine judgment. In light of these signs, turning back to God, seeking forgiveness, and strengthening one's faith is essential. Wars, economic crises, and pandemics emphasize the need for practical preparedness, ensuring food and water security, strengthening financial resilience, building community networks for support. If these events are prophetic fulfillments, then believers have a responsibility to warn others and spread the message of salvation. Matthew 24:14. Jesus instructed his followers to be watchful for signs of the times. Watch, therefore, and pray always that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass. Luke 21:36. While we cannot say with certainty that the March 29, 2025 solar eclipse is a direct fulfillment of prophecy, it serves as a powerful reminder of God's sovereignty and the urgency of being spiritually and practically prepared. History has shown that great crises often follow celestial signs. Whether this eclipse marks another turning point remains to be seen, but the call to faith, vigilance, and readiness remains unchanged. The four horsemen of the apocalypse symbolize universal struggles, war, famine, pestilence, and death, realities that have shaped history and continue to do so. Eclipses, long viewed as divine warnings, have often coincided with these global crises, leading many to speculate on their prophetic significance. As the March 29, 2025 solar eclipse approaches, it serves as a profound reminder of God's sovereignty and the urgency to be spiritually prepared. While no one can predict the exact fulfillment of prophecy, the alignment of celestial signs with global turmoil suggests that we are living in prophetically significant times. As Revelation warns, "Blessed is the one who keeps the words of the prophecy of this book." Revelation 22:7. Are we witnessing the signs of the four horsemen in our generation? Only time will tell, but the call to faith, repentance, and preparedness remains as urgent as ever.